Welcome to the Kick Sugar Coach podcast. Join me each week as I interview experts who will share the science of sugar, sugar addiction, and different approaches to recovery. We hope to empower you with the information and inspiration, insights, and strategies you need to break up with sugar and fall in love with healthy whole foods so you can prevent and reverse chronic disease, lose weight, boost your mood and energy. Feel free to go to my website for details on my coaching programs and to access free resources, kicksugarcoach.com. Hello and welcome everybody to an interview today with Dallin Hardy. Dallin is a biochemist and a researcher with Hardy Nutritionals, which is a science-driven supplement company dedicated to sharing nutraceuticals that support both brain health, cognitive health, mental health. Hardy's flagship product, called Daily Essential Nutrients, is a broad spectrum micronutrient blend of vitamins and minerals with over 60, count them, 60 plus peer-reviewed studies and clinical trials constantly ongoing that have been proven to have shown that this supplement improves mood, cognition, and emotional resilience. What sets Hardy apart as a company is that not just that they're innovative, and that they're so well research studied, is that they have phenomenal customer service. Like no company on the planet is like Hardy's, because it's a big family that started this company, and the sons are all scientists, and they're part of the company, and you can call them and pick their brains, and they want to hear from you. They want to know. They want to know the nuances of what their products are doing and not doing and how to tweak it to get it right for you. They're also really renowned for helping people with your doctors and psychiatrists to taper down off psychotic medications and SSRIs and SNRIs, etc., as you taper onto their product, because it has been shown to be as effective, if not more effective, for some people. So with deep, deep expertise in how vitamins and minerals and cofactors influence brain metabolism, neural signaling, and mood regulation, and the health of the mitochondria, Dallin's here to get not too in the science weeds, because he can do that. We're going to try and keep him high level, but he really can create a real understanding of why micronutrient supplementation, high quality, clinical strength, can really make a difference. He's going to focus on the mitochondria, but we'll also get him to talk really broad level. What is the research showing about the importance of micronutrients and why supplementation can be a game changer for some of us? So welcome, Dallin.
Thank you for having me, Florence. I appreciate that introduction. It is a personal thing, and there's tons of research, and I'm a biochemist, and I would love to just talk about, mechanisms deep in the cell all day, but going to try and keep it high level and keep it personal, tell a little bit of the story of how this came about, and it is personal, as you'll see. So
can I just interrupt you? I'm going to interrupt you for one tiny second to let everybody know how I found Dallin, how I found Hardy Nutritionals. Just so I want you to know that I have no financial stake in this company. I'm not a shareholder. I'm many years ago, I'm going to say, 25 years ago, I met a woman named Autumn in Edmonton. We lived together, and she came into my office. I used to run the office of an MLA in Canada. And she came in and she had a question. In the course of conversation, we kind of just hit it off. And she was happy and bright and lovely. And in the course of conversation, she said to me, I didn't always used to be like this. She said, I had bipolar. I came from a mother who was mentally ill, committed suicide. I had siblings that were mentally ill. She said, it's just a miracle that I have the life I have today, because my father and Mr. Hardy came up with this micronutrient supplement, and they made me take it. I didn't want to take it. They made me take it, and it totally transformed my life. And so they they just did it for their own families. And then it was a nonprofit. And then Hardy Nutritionals formed their own company that works largely with psychiatrists and psychologists and therapists and doctors and nutritionists and dietitians and coaches all over the world. And so their expertise is in working with us to support our clients, to make us look good as as therapists and stuff, because we get really great results when we get our clients on them. So I just want to let you know that I stumbled on this company just by accident, and I've been watching the research over many decades now. Keep pouring in, keep pouring in. Um, one question I want to start with, Dallin,
Sure.
is why I know you're not paying for this research. I know you're not funding it. It is very, very much third party. Why are all these universities and scientists from around the world interested in your product? Why are they doing this research for you or with you?
That's good. That's a good question. So you're right. We have not funded a study to date with money. All we do is donate supplements, donate the products, and the researchers do it. And really, I think, I mean, in the academic world, a researcher is motivated to publish. You get tenure if you get a lot of publications at your university. So they want to publish studies, but nobody wants to publish a failed study. That's not, as far as job satisfaction goes, they're driven by like other motives. They want to help the world and make a difference and get recognition for that. And so how it started way back in the day was just one researcher picked it up and took a chance studying it and just used her own funding. Researchers get grants from governments and other organizations, the university itself sometimes. And then studied it. And then her graduate student on that project was so impressed with the change in those kids that when she became a full-fledged professor at a different university, she reached out, got the same supplement, started studying it as well. And then her graduate student on one of those studies was so impressed with changes in it was in children with severe mental health issues that they were getting better. They were really changing the trajectory of lives in this. So then she started running studies, and we're on the fourth generation now of researchers, just from professor to graduate student, professor to graduate student. And when once you have the experience like your friend Autumn, once you see how much it can change someone's life, it's really motivating. This is why I'm at Hardy Nutritionals at all. And it goes back even this focus on research really speaks to my dad. So my dad is David Hardy. He's the founder of Hardy Nutritionals. And so I'm going to go back even further than Florence and tell the story a little further back. So my father was a biologist, and before he switched to human nutrition, he spent more than 20 years in animal nutrition. And he knew that he worked with pigs and cattle on big feedlots and big animal operations for commercial, food production. And he knew that in order to, like, let's take an example of a feedlot that has 10,000 cattle. So it's a big facility. In the wintertime, they bring them into this feedlot where they can feed them. In the summertime, they're out on the range eating grass because that's a less expensive way to feed them. But they bring them to these feedlots and they have to feed them. So my dad would blend feed for them, and they blend lots of micronutrients. They would broadly supplement these animals at high doses. And and that was his life, his experience. But he knew that in order to convince a feedlot to change their feed operations and start blending in your, micronutrient additives that he was distributing, you had to have a study to just show that it was better than the feed that, program that they were using. Because, I mean, these feedlots, 10,000 cows, that's like $1 million. This is back in the 80s. It was like it's probably several million a day now, but the operating cost for this kind of an operation is like $1 million a day. So, and the money, lots of money in it. So you had to have studies, or else the feedlot operators are not going to be convinced. So he knew that, and he was in that world and here's the story that you're familiar with. This family, there's a friend of our family, met through church actually. The wife had committed suicide. So this is Autumn's mom, had committed suicide. She had a bipolar diagnosis as well, and her husband, who later became my dad's business partner, was, in human supplements. He just vented at church one day, like, I'm worried my daughter's gonna go down the same road. Like she had a bipolar diagnosis, but then she went really like postpartum. It's a big loss of nutrients, also loss of sleep. There's a lot of stress with a new baby, especially the first baby, which was what this was. And that aggravated everything. Postpartum, um, it just got way worse, her bipolar, and she required constant supervision just so, her husband set that in place to make sure she'd still be alive. And it was in that setting that her dad, my father's, friend at church, was like, "Hey, what do you is there what can we do?" Because she was already on medications and she was still just, in and out of the hospital and it wasn't working. And they were still worried that she for her life. And this is where my dad thought. He said, "Oh, it sounds like ear and tail biting in pigs." I mean, so with pigs are omnivores, so they'll eat meat, and they'll eat grass and grains. They'll eat almost anything, actually. But they they had learned in the animal industry long before that pigs, they get irritability if you get too many in one place. They get irritable, they start fighting each other. And as soon as they taste, because they're omnivores, they'll bite the most accessible things on the other animal. If they bite each other, they'll bite the tails and the ears, the things that stick out, right? And as soon as they taste the blood, it's like food, right? It's because they're omnivores, and so it just spirals and they get crazy and aggressive. And you can stop all of this in a couple of ways. You can spread them out. You don't put them in a small space together because then they'll fight. Or you can make sure they're really well supplemented with essential micronutrients, and then they won't eat each other. They won't fight. They'll be calm, pleasant to each other and to their handlers. And you can fit way more animals in the same pen. And so my dad looked at these behavioral issues, bipolar, the moods all over the place, dangerous thoughts about hurting self and others, even baby. And he's like, "Well, it sounds like the pigs when they don't have enough nutrients. You put too many of those kinds of people together, and you're going to have the human equivalent of ear and tail biting real quick, right?" So he said, "Well, let's try. This is my world. Let's try nutrition. Have you tried that?" And so that's what he did. And it worked. Within 3 months, Autumn was off of her psychiatric medications and more stable than she'd been in the memory uh, of her husband and her father's family, her nuclear family. So that was impactful, and word spread like wildfire. And other people started trying it, and this wasn't pig feed. This was human supplements. And initially, my dad just selected supplements that were already on the market and combined a whole bunch of them to get all the nutrients. But then after a while, they decided, you know what, we should put this all into one formula since we have to use a lot of supplements to get all of these nutrients. And let's make a business out of this. So that's how he switched to from animal to human nutrition. And there's a few things that really struck him when he made that change. In humans, he's like, wait a sec, illness and complications is where we make our money from. Like the hospital makes money when you're sick. They don't make money when you're healthy. But the cows, it's total opposite. If you have a sick cow, you got to pay the vet. It doesn't get to market quickly, doesn't gain weight well. It's problematic to have an unhealthy animal. So the money's in health in animals, and the money's in sickness in humans. And then he was also struck by the fact that like doctors would play around with single nutrients and low doses. And he's like, wait, what? What are the chances if you're deficient in one nutrient, you're not deficient in any others? Like, really? Is that how diet works? So they supplement broadly a balance of all the essential vitamins and minerals, and they'd take those doses up. And the thing with broad spectrum supplementation is it's a lot safer. So you can go to high doses because if you just supplement high doses of one nutrient, you can create an imbalance relative to the other nutrients. But if you have a balanced formula and then you take that all up together, then you're covering all your bases. You're not inducing any relative insufficiencies or relative imbalances. So it's very safe and it keeps them really healthy. They have better immune systems. They have a better behavior, as we talked about in the pigs, and they thrive, and that's where the money is. So eventually this initially it was just this friend's family, and that's where the mental illness had been, and it was great. Dad was kind of into it, but the rest of us at home weren't that connected to it emotionally. And we didn't supplement preventatively at this point. In spite of, my dad looking back on it, he was like, man, I should have known. We should have been thinking the way about animals, but we still were kind of just like, go to the doctor when you're sick. You take supplements if you need to, but we don't need to, right? Preventatively. And then a couple of my siblings, not at the same time, but in sequence. First of all, my brother, I've got him circled in this picture, and this is shortly before this happened for him. Had a psychotic episode. He got diagnosed with schizophrenia, actually, and he got really violent. We had to watch him 24/7. He had to pause for a time. He got put on medications. Then when he came home, I was a young teenager at the time, and I played psych nurse for 6 months, administering my dad's supplement. Thankfully, the solution was already in place, right? So we just applied the supplement that he created for others, and my brother got better. And then was nearly out of high school in this picture. She left home, she got married, and she sort of missed out on the experience with my brother. She hadn't seen how important supplementation was, and our family didn't supplement preventatively before then with any micronutrients. And so she got married and had her first child. And shortly after, so when she had her child, she had some postpartum depression, but her husband died within a few months of the birth, and that he didn't die immediately. He was diagnosed with late stage cancer. They found it very late, and then he died over the course of a few months. She lost a lot of sleep. She had a baby, plus taking care of him, and all the stress around that. They didn't have a lot of money. Obviously, they're just newlyweds. All kinds of stress from all kinds of aspects of life, and so that threw her from just postpartum depression that might be comparable to what's in, what many will experience, to really severe, looked almost like bipolar. She was just extremely depressed, but she was just delusional sometimes too. And so after her husband died, and we took her into our home, and I got to play psych nurse the second time, and we just used the nutrition and these broad spectrum micronutrients stabilized her as well a lot quicker. It was faster than for my brother. It didn't take 6 months. And so the paradigm family became, you know what, this is just give the body what it needs and it can heal itself. And here's a picture. I don't have a picture of my sister's family, or at least it's a big they both have big families, so it's hard to fit on this slide. So I just picked my brother. If you met him, you'd have no idea he'd ever had a schizophrenic diagnosis. Like if we lined up, I always say, if you lined up all my siblings, it's a big family, and I had you choose, which one was it that had the schizophrenic diagnosis, you might pick me before him. Like honestly, he's that normal, and all it was these broad spectrum micronutrients. And you know what's interesting about him? You couldn't pay that guy $1 million. Well, his wife wouldn't let him, but you couldn't pay that guy $1 million to stop supplementing, stop taking his micronutrients, because he doesn't want to go back. And that's the way a lot of our customers feel. And so what's going on here? Sarah, I'm going to get a little bit sciencey. I'm going to try and stay high level, but
Dallin, I'm going to
yeah, go
jump
ahead.
I'm going to jump in for 1 second to say that Dallin is a hardcore scientist, biochemist. You can already tell that. So if you're sciencey, if you're on the sciencey spectrum, you're going to love this presentation. You just sit down, grab a mug of tea, chill out, stay to the end. Every bit of this will be gold to you. And if you're not very sciencey and you're like, oh, I don't really like science very much, just sit down, get comfortable. You're going to be happy you heard this all the way through. I promise you. Just be very, very patient. See this all the way through. There's so much good information here. So that's my little shameless plug.
Yeah, thank you. I've tried to keep it high level, and I love teaching about science. Hopefully it's accessible. So the body, one way to think about it, of your body, is that for high level types of action to work. Body system, so there's like a cardiovascular system. There's a respiratory system. It's a system with different organs in it. That's made up of tissues that when you get smaller, they're cells. Inside the cell, you've got enzymes that are doing work. And what do they rely on? It's these essential nutrients. So we're getting at really root cause. And so essential nutrients are what it means, the meaning of the words here, essential. What it means is your body cannot make them. You have to ingest them. So these are nutrients that your body cannot make on its own. You have to ingest them. And a good example of essential nutrients, because they're essential to all organisms, is minerals. Calcium, phosphorus, magnesium. These are the rocks of the earth, of the soil. They're used in plants, they're used in animals for the enzymes in the cells that make up the tissues. Bones are actually made of minerals, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium, and more. They're structural. And so, but those are elements. They're just elements that came with the earth. They can't really be created or destroyed almost, and so definitely not within you. You can't make them. You have to ingest them. So, but there are other ones too, like vitamins, and this daily essential nutrients formula, my dad's innovation, was focusing on. So for essential nutrients, there's vitamins, micronutrients. There's vitamins, there's minerals, and then there's some essential proteins. They're called the building blocks of proteins are called amino acids. Some of those are essential, not all of them. Your body can make some of them, but some of them you have to ingest. And then fats, there's some essential fats, just a few. There's a few fats that your body can't make. They're called fatty acids. And then the rest of the fat your body can make. And fat is used all over your body. Every cell is surrounded by a little layer of fat. That's what keeps the things in, the water inside. But my dad figured out, and this was true in animals too, is that in most diets, people are getting a lot of protein and fat. Like these, we're not generally in modern society deficient in these things quite as much. We have an abundance of food for the most part, but does it have in it all the vitamins and minerals that it should? And there are reasons that I won't go into, but there are reasons in agriculture, the way we treat the land, the food off it without putting a lot back. And we're drawing these things, the minerals from the soil, and then we process the food. So you go to the store and how much of the food we're eating is whole foods and how much of it is processed. And then there's also, what sells, even if it is produce that is fresh food and whole food, like a squash or whatever, vegetables, how are they grown? What farmers get for is not how many vitamins and minerals are there. It's how much it weighs, and how big it is. And so there are ways with watering. We have a lot of irrigated food production where you can water it and supplement it with certain things. Like I don't know if you've ever fertilized your lawn, you look at it's always nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, NPK fertilizer. You go spread that on your lawn and the grass gets really green, and that's great. Well, there are minerals than nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in grass. And so when we grow food for food production, are we trying to optimize all the essential minerals, the trace minerals that the body needs? They're essential, but that's not what we're always optimizing for. And so that's where in animals, and then when my dad switched to humans, they would focus on the broad spectrum micronutrients. Mostly minerals have the biggest impact. And here's what they do in the body. So with the exception of the bones, that's an example where some of these micronutrients are structural. But for the most part, they're not structural, they're catalytic. So the mechanism, the way that these vitamins and minerals affect the body is they are helping your body to do all of its work. So we call this metabolism, where your body takes in some food and it alters it and it changes it to you. You have to turn a plant into you. And then there's some waste from that. It needs to be excreted. It's quite a process. That whole process is metabolism, and there's a lot of steps. And when you get down into the cells, um, these the workhorses of this whole process are called enzymes. And the enzymes will take what each enzyme does. Your body has millions and billions of them. They'll take a molecule and they'll alter it. They'll do a change to it. And then another enzyme will come along and take that one. An enzyme that's built for that other molecule will come take it, alter it. So for breaking things down, breaking your food down, a whole bunch of enzymes. For putting it, once you break it down and then absorb it in, you got to build it back together, build it into your own tissue, right? So that's all enzymes too. And for getting rid of the waste along the way from that process of breaking down and rebuilding into what you need. And you got to create energy too to do all this. So now the enzymes aren't the energy, but they need energy. And but where the vitamins and minerals really work is they are what's called enzyme cofactors or coenzymes. So a cofactor or coenzyme is mostly vitamins and minerals, and it is known all the enzyme cofactors have not yet been mapped in humans, but it is known that it's at least a third, and it's over. And they estimate it's about half of enzymes cannot do their function without a vitamin or mineral, at least one. Some require multiple in order to do the reaction the chemical reaction that they're trying to do on whatever molecules they're working with inside of your cells. And so there's a huge dependency pervasively throughout the body on vitamins and minerals to do all of the metabolic reactions of your body. And it's those metabolic pathways and reactions that us biochemists learn about. And one of the most nutrient intensive processes in the body is creating energy. So I talked a little bit about breaking your food down and then building the pieces back up into you to make you from whatever you took in. And but there needs to be energy for all of this. So to make the energy, there's a lot of enzymes involved. You got to take your food, and this example on this slide shows glucose turning to energy. So this is sugar turning into energy. The final molecule that your body uses for energy is it's called ATP. I won't go into the name of it. Well, it's adenosine triphosphate if you want to know, but ATP is the energy molecule that your body uses for everything. It supplies energy to all the enzymes, to everything you do. Why you have body heat, it's why you have a temperature, right? It's because you're literally on a controlled manner. You're kind of like burning gas or wood or something. You have to produce energy to do something. So just like we use energy of gas, wood, coal, whatever, to heat our houses or whatever, this heat that humans produce while they're alive is a byproduct of this ATP being burned, so to speak, in your body. And the place in the body, the fire pit, so to speak, where this ATP fuel gets burned is in the mitochondria. And it's burned elsewhere in the cell too, but it's burned in the mitochondria and made there. So your mitochondria make all the ATP for everything else. So it's energy to make the ATP, but then it also makes enough that it exports it. So everything in the cell, the mitochondria is feeding it the ATP. And this whole process from taking the raw, in this case, sugar molecule, and breaking it down, look at all on the top right, look at all the vitamins and minerals that are involved just in breaking down that sugar into the component parts that then go into the mitochondria to make ATP. This is before it's even making most of the ATP. There's some ATP that's produced in that process. There's energy in that sugar molecule that's released a little bit, and it's captured as ATP in that process. But look at all those nutrients. There's, what is that, 9, 10 nutrients, vitamins and minerals. All vitamins and minerals are required just to get it into the mitochondria, the sugar into the mitochondria. Some ATP is made from that. Some energy comes out of that. And then in the mitochondria, it gets broken down even more in the citric acid cycle. You can see, again, all of the vitamins and minerals that are involved. And then it goes into these things that are circled in yellow that are the electron transport chain. You don't need to know all terms, but look at all of the vitamins and minerals that are involved. You have basically all the essential vitamins and minerals that are required in just this one process of mitochondrial function and energy production to produce the energy that fuels all the rest of your body. It's so dependent on micronutrients. And you know, it's a real shame in college when I was memorizing these pathways. We memorized all of enzymes and we memorized the molecules that they changed, like glucose pyruvate. You can see in glycolysis, it changes glucose to pyruvate. So we memorized which molecules got converted by which enzyme into what other molecule, and then what enzyme changed that into the next one. We never memorized, with a few exceptions, we never memorized the cofactors. These are just assumed. They're just assumed to be there. Think about that. The essential parts, these nutrients, are so fundamental that a doctor going into med school just assumed them all the way through school. I took all the pre-med, mostly all the pre-med courses, and never focused on that. But it's known how ubiquitously important they are. It's in these they're the catalysts for all these reactions in the metabolic pathways.
Can I jump in there and say a
Yeah,
quick
go ahead.
thing? I was just thinking about how plentiful, more than abundant, overabundance of glucose coming into our system, and how incredible it would be if that was true of all of the micronutrients. Because I wonder just how energized a human being would be. I know it shouldn't be refined sugars, but just healthy whole, foods coming
Yeah.
in, beautiful nutrition with all these cofactors, like how much energy people would have, how good they would feel. And yet,
So,
go
oh,
ahead,
yeah,
sorry. No, I was
the
just thinking how ironic it is that there's so much more sugar than we need and so much less of the cofactors and the micronutrients that we need. That this massive imbalance. Like, oh, we've got really good as human beings of concentrating our foods down into the glucose, but we forgot about this other part of the equation.
yeah. How would what's an analogy that would, so like if the glucose is like gasoline in a vehicle, you have a tank full of gas. We got lots of sugar in our standard American diet that you could turn into energy, right? So your body could use, but it needs all of these micronutrients to do it. So maybe those would be like the oil. Well, if in the engine, right? Because they're catalyzing the reaction. They're greasing things up to make it happen, right? And if you have an engine with no oil, good luck turning that gasoline into powering your car. Your engine's going to seize because the you can't catalyze that reaction, the burning of the fuel, and it's just it's so important. It's the grease of all the wheels, all through all your cells, is these vitamins and minerals, these cofactors that are facilitating all the reactions as cofactors or coenzymes. Yeah, that's a good point. And so when you have an insufficient amount of these cofactors, your mitochondria cannot produce energy well. So in a healthy mitochondria, you can see on the left the shape of this little thing in your cells, organelle it's called. It brings in nutrients and oxygen, and then it has energy producing machinery in there. That's in the black rectangle. And if it's a healthy mitochondria and it has all the micronutrients that it needs, it can produce a lot of ATP and it's really efficient. And so there's not a lot of waste. The free radical line that's coming out of there with those little red dots, that's the waste. And that would be, I don't know, that would be like smoke. If you're burning a fire and it's really efficient, there's very little smoke. All the wood gets consumed. It's very efficient and there's smoke. If it's a really smoky fire, it's lacking something. It's either lacking air or heat or fuel or something. And that's negative stuff kicking out. And there's always a little bit of free radicals, reactive oxygen species, they call them, that are produced by the mitochondria. Your body just has to deal with that just to stay alive. It's part of being mortal. There's some downsides to producing all this energy. But if your mitochondria is really efficient, minimized. Then if your mitochondria gets damaged, distressed, and you can see the shape of it starts to change, and it starts to shrivel, and it's a lot less efficient. And so your energy production, this would be the green little bubbles coming out of there that's representing ATP, your energy production starts going down, and the reactive oxygen species, the free radicals coming out. So this is the stuff, the incomplete reaction byproducts go up a lot, and those start causing things like you've heard terms like inflammation, right? Those cause things like inflammation. Oxidative stress is another one that come from these underfunctioning mitochondria. And so you have less energy, and then you have more oxidative stress. And this becomes a vicious cycle, because the more oxidative stress you get, the less efficient the mitochondria is. You get more of those reactive oxygen species, and it's just a downward spiral.
Can I
So
jump in again there, Dallin? So is what's damaging a piece of what's damaging our mitochondria is too much sugar and not enough of these essential cofactors.
that would be one of the settings. Yep, and that's a common one, where your energy producing machinery is inefficient, but you got a lot of glucose to burn, so it's gonna try, your body's gonna be trying to push all that through there. It's gonna be pushing all the fuel through a really inefficient system. So you're getting not a lot of ATP out. It'll be like what's on the right here. You get not a lot of ATP, and a lot of that is just partially broken down and converted into these incomplete products that are reactive oxygen species or free radicals, and that causes oxidative stress.
And does
And
that
that
reverse itself? Do the mitochondria start to become efficient and burn lots of ATP or produce a lot of ATP and fewer sort of free radicals when we get the cofactors in?
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's really about the efficient it is at those reactions, right? And those vitamins and minerals are the cofactors for all those reactions, the enzyme reactions. And so, yeah, it can be reversed. If you don't reverse it, your body will eventually just kill this mitochondria and try to replace it.
Got it.
And so this vicious cycle needs to be reversed. And the essential vitamin mineral cofactors are one of the most effective ways to do that. And if you're deficient in those, there's actually nothing else you can do that will reverse it. Like that's an essential piece of any reversal program for misfunctioning mitochondria. So why the big impacts broad spectrum micronutrients have on mental health? What's unique about the brain here as opposed to the rest of the body? Well, the brain needs a lot of energy. It's only about 2% of our body weight. The brain, actually the whole central system, the spinal cord, the brain. And that whole system consumes about 20% of our energy intake. It's massively disproportionate to its size, because your brain, and this is even at rest, even if you're just not thinking, you're just sitting there on the couch, your brain is still working. It's running what's called the default mode network, and it is working hard. And so it has a lot of mitochondria in the brain, and it's got to produce a lot of ATP to fuel all that energy. But when your brain is active, when you're concentrating, when you're stressed, worried about things, always thinking, if you're in a time of crisis, when you have to manage a lot of uncertainty, your brain doesn't like uncertainty. It tries to figure it out. Even in your sleep, it tries to figure things out. This is where dreams come from, they think. You're processing in your sleep. Your brain never stops. It consumes so much of your energy. It's like a small car. It's a small organ, weight-wise. It's only 2% of your weight, but it consumes 20% of your energy. It's a small car, but it needs a huge engine. And so you can imagine how important mitochondria are to the brain. And then now that we've talked about how important the vitamins and minerals are to the mitochondria, you start seeing how important the vitamins and minerals are to the brain, because it's got to produce so much energy. And we can review that here. Look at all these vitamins and minerals that are running the mitochondria. And there are billions of these mitochondria. And there are inside each one, there's millions of these little enzymatic, assembly lines trying to produce your ATP. So millions inside of millions inside your brain. It's a lot of nutrients that you need, a lot of these little vitamins and minerals. And so this Daily Nutrients product and my dad came up with when he switched from animal to human nutrition. Why is this unique? Well, it's comprehensive. Why is it having these effects? You need all the essential vitamins and minerals. You saw how many are required just for mitochondrial function. And it's balanced. We talked about how in animals, they would use a broad balanced supplement, and then you could go to high doses. And then once you get a balanced formula of all the essential nutrients, micronutrients, go to higher doses. And then these, with my brother and sister, I would be administering while I was playing psych nurse in my teen years. I was administering, up to 18 capsules a day for my schizophrenic brother, and up to 15 for my sister. Most of the big studies that you'll see on the Hardy Nutritionals website have used 12 capsules per day of the current daily essential nutrients formula. But and then you got to have it you got to make it so those nutrients can get into the body. So these are all things that go into the making of a supplement, but it's all to deliver in the most effective way possible all those essential nutrients, the essential vitamins and minerals. So
Can I pause you there again, Dallin?
yeah.
I can imagine that there's people here. What? I have to take 12? Why do I have to take
Yeah.
that many? So I'll give you an opportunity to explain that.
Yeah, it's a good question. So a big part of the bulk is delivering the minerals. So you can see on the bioavailable line at the bottom of this slide, we've got this Nutritech chelated minerals. So Hardy Nutritionals has our own chelation process for minerals. All chelating means is you're taking a rock form of a mineral, which your body can't use very well, and you're making it into more of a plant form. And what that does is it adds a lot of bulk. So when a mineral, your body uses a mineral, this tiny little ion, it's one molecule. But the way your body gets that from food is the plants take minerals from the soil, their roots excrete these acids that break down the rocks, and then these acids grab onto the mineral, to the one little mineral, and they bring them into the plant, and they chaperone, or they carry that mineral throughout the plant. Minerals are reactive. Plant doesn't want it to react until it gets into the cell where it wants the reaction to happen with these enzymes. That's where it's going to react. That's where it's the cofactor. Between the soil and the leaf or wherever it's happening, we don't want this mineral just reacting with something else, getting involved in a reaction where it shouldn't be. And so it's chaperoned. And so the acids, the types of acids that plants use for this are like citric acid, for example, malic acid. So citrus fruits are well known for being high in citric acid. Well, the plants, and there are other types of acids that are used. There are amino acids that plants use, and they all associate with these minerals and carry them around. Well, if a mineral is just one little molecule, citric acid is a large one of tons of atoms. So a mineral is just one atom, and then citric acid is a big molecule. So all these organic acids that the plants are carrying the minerals around with are huge compared to the mineral. They're way bulky. So in 12 capsule dose that's in these studies, not more than 9 of the capsules are just delivering the minerals. And you could just give the rock form of minerals. A lot of one-a-day multivitamins will give less bioavailable forms of the minerals, or they'll just leave minerals out of the formula, and it's mostly just a multivitamin, right? They forget the minerals because it's too bulky, and that's how they get down to a one-a-day. But if you want to give all the nutrients in a balanced way, you've got to get all those minerals in there. And if you want to get them to be really effective, you've got to deliver them not in the rock form of the nutrient, but in the organic form that the plants use. That's what your body's used to receiving it, and so that's why it takes minerals in that. And but it's not huge. I mean, it is hefty doses. That's another thing, like dosing. A lot of the recommended intakes from nutritionists and from government agencies and stuff for these nutrients are based on deficiency studies. So if we take it away, when do you start having illness? And then what is the point? What is the lowest point you can have the intake of this vitamin or mineral without having that that deficiency disease. That's what we're going to call your recommended intake, because you need to get that much or else you'll have a deficiency disease. Now, if someone's been suboptimal for a long time, long enough for their brain to be really, like, all the mitochondria in their brain are misfunctioning, like we showed earlier, producing a lot of reactive oxygen species, there's oxidative stress, the mitochondria are struggling. To recover that, we're not looking at the doses that are just enough to prevent a deficiency disease in a healthy person. We gotta turn things around, and so it takes higher doses than just the recommended intakes. But they're not extreme doses. Like, these are safe quantities of these nutrients, and that's a nice thing about nutrients as compared to drugs. If you're trying to change your mental health with drugs or whatever, is nutrients are safe up to very high doses, especially, like I said, in a balanced formula. And that's very different from drugs. There's almost no any drug that's safe because they can truly be called safe because they're foreign to the body and they have side effects right from the outset. But there's no downsides to nutrients for most people until, and with some genetic exceptions maybe, but until there's very high doses, especially if it's in a broad spectrum format. And so this new approach to mental health, what are the results? Well, we talked about studies and how my dad was interested in getting studies in humans because he knew that in animals, that's what it took to change a feedlot's mindset, right? And so we have tons of studies. This is actually an outdated slide. We've had a bunch. This is as of January 2025. But this year, we've had a lot more studies published. So like Florence said, it's well over 60. The full list is on our website. And on here, we've got types of studies like the double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trials. These are the gold standard of medical evidence. And we've got safety studies, mechanism studies. We talked about mitochondria as a mechanism. There are more mechanisms than that. And what are they on? We got ADHD studies in adults and children. We got depression, including in pregnancy, antenatal depression. So, and this is such an exciting thing because very few things are studied in pregnancy because it's just not safe to do so. You don't know what the effect on the fetus is going to be. But the thing with vitamins and minerals is when the researchers went to get a pregnancy study done, there's so much safety that the ethics review board at the academic institutions, there's an ethics review board that reviews all of the studies that are done, and has to approve them. And the ethics review board passed it because these are things that are healthy to the fetus. There's not risks here like there are with some medications. So medications are used in pregnancy sometimes, but they've never been studied in pregnancy because it's not even safe to do so. And so, and then stress and anxiety, and in addiction recovery settings like smoking cessation, and we've seen a lot of people too say that cravings around food will diminish too as they get these nutrients. Like you were saying earlier, Florence, you were putting the pieces together. When your mitochondria are functioning, they're not putting out enough energy. Your body thinks, well, maybe if I throw more, sugar at it or whatever, I'll get more energy. But what's really missing is those micronutrients, and if you give those, then you get more energy. So a lot of people report more energy in all of this. It's very commonly reported from daily essential nutrients. Other things that have been studied in other studies, babies developing other disorders, everything having to do with the brain. Traumatic brain injury, it doesn't have to be psychiatric illnesses, just anything to do with the brain, neurologic, even sleep. And there are other things like hypothyroidism, learning disabilities, and developmental delay. There's cognitive decline and dementia. These things are all neurological in some way, and many of them improve with daily essential nutrients. In general,
Alan, could you go back and finish that slide? There's so much good there. Don't.
oh,
There's so many people go, oh my gosh, I have that. Oh my gosh.
yeah, I just listed a bunch of things on here that we've seen in our customer base but we have no studies on yet. And I would love to get studies on this, but like I say, we don't fund our studies, and so it's really what the funding agencies are funding at the time. We have a lot of ADHD studies because in the last decade, a lot of governments have put a lot of money in towards studying ADHD, and so the researchers have gotten funding for but all of these things have equal potential in our observation with testimonials from our customers. And 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 so
Read them out. Like read them.
yeah, so
You read the name.
hypothyroidism, I just listed some that we have testimonials on.
Okay.
This is by no means an exhaustive list, but hypothyroidism, yeah, people with low thyroid generally have low energy, and that daily essential nutrients can resolve that really in most people. Developmental delay and learning disabilities. This is we're talking about children here. The previous slide talked about autism spectrum disorders. We have some studies in that, but the beyond that, we have developmental delay that's outside of autism, learning disabilities, where kids have seen some really impressive results. And then we got Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive decline, like I mentioned. Oppositional defiance and disruptive dysregulation are psychiatric diagnoses in children that are pretty self-explanatory. This is parents hate these ones, and because I don't know, it's even worse than something like ADHD in many ways because um, if you're just inattentive and you have lots of energy and you're hyperactive, that's one thing. But if you're getting in fights at school and you're and home belligerent and stuff, these are like more disruptive to quality of life almost than some of the more common um, psychiatric disorders. And trigeminal neuralgia, that's a that's a nerve problem in the face. And again, it's related to nerves in the brain and central nervous system. And chemotherapy, when people go through chemotherapy, well, you'd think we'd be better at treating cancer than this, but basically cancer treatment is we're going to try and kill you and hope that the cancer dies first and the rest of you survives. And then once the cancer's dead, we'll try and recover you. And so a lot of cancer treatments are anti-nutritional. They block out your nutrients because the thing is cancer cells are growing really rapidly. The tumor is growing, growing, growing. It needs a lot of energy, not a lot of nutrients, right? And so you don't want to really supplement in that setting of active cancer, certain nutrients especially. So a lot of chemotherapy is blocking nutrient action, and they're trying to, and it's just they're hoping that these cells that need a lot of nutrients, they need more nutrients than the other cells, the cancerous cells do, that they'll die first because if you restrict the nutrients a bit, they need a lot, and so they'll starve out, and then yeah, it's basically try and kill you, but the cancer dies first, and then you stop there, don't kill the person, and then recover them with the cancer gone. That's kind of the broad approach to much of cancer treatment. But then recovering from that, because the body just destroyed by that chemotherapy, um, the essential micronutrients really help the body to recover from those chemotherapy treatments. Anorexia and bulimia, these are eating disorders, and there's a psychological aspect to those. Trichotillomania is like pulling, chronic hair pulling. Tourette's is a movement disorder that's neurologic. Parkinson's also a movement disorder that's neurologic. And some seizures and some migraines. Not all of these will be benefited by daily essential nutrients. There's different reasons that some of these things emerge, and some of them are rooted in mechanisms that are nutrient dependent and some aren't. So it's not everything, but just broad application, broad intervention, right? It's a broad spectrum, pervasive, and enzymes are all over every metabolic pathway, and the cofactors are required for probably half those enzymes, approximately, somewhere between third and half. And so it's just the mechanisms are so pervasive here. And so the response is, like, in general, anyone who takes daily essential nutrients will see some improvement based on how much they take of the nutrients and how at deficit they are. So if you already have tons of energy, you're probably not going to notice more energy from it. But most people, they have the afternoon crash and stuff, and that they'll notice when their mitochondria are working better with these micronutrients. They won't have that anymore, and so there's improved cognition, sense of well-being. That would be energy, less it's really more resilience to stress. It's not that the stresses in your life go down, it's just you're more resilient to it. Um, Less brain fog, better sleep. You can sleep better. Mood is improved. If you're depressed, it lifts the mood. And then mood is stabilized too, which is a bipolar problem. Your mood's all over the place. That can stabilize. And then focus, there's, like I said, in the ADHD study, there's the ability to pay attention. Emotional control, we talked about behavior conduct problems, in children, like oppositional defiance and things like that. These are all things that in the research studies have been improved. So in fact, in the studies, the measures, there are measures, there are different psychiatric measures. So there's some for like ADHD. It's just measuring attention and hyperactivity. That's all the questionnaires for that diagnosis are measuring. And then there are measures that are psychiatric measures that measure your brain function generally. Overall, how are you functioning? And this shows up in relationships. It shows up, on these questionnaires where the clinicians are rating these things. They're looking at how the person is functioning in their life overall. And you know what? The biggest, there's improvements across the board on in all the studies for ADHD and attention, hyperactivity, in bipolar for the mood questionnaires and stuff like that. But you know what? A theme across all the studies, some of the big changes that are that they measure are on the overall functioning questionnaires. And it makes sense because it's such a pervasive intervention, and it's so fundamental that the best way to measure it is like, oh my gosh, your relationships are better, there's less fighting, you're just functioning, you're handling life better. Those measures of overall functioning get at people's ability to work, kids' ability to learn and to stay out of fights and to interact happily at home. Going back to those pigs, it's like humans. These are measures of humans being able to live together in peace. That's kind of what overall functioning and be really productive and optimize their capacity and ability. Those are the kinds of things that the overall functioning measures get at. And those are the things that in all the studies that have shown the biggest benefit from the broad spectrum micronutrients. And it makes sense. Just on this one mechanism, you can see how pervasively necessary these essential nutrients are. They're the bottom of all, they're the foundation of all of the other body systems, from those enzymes all the way up to the things that we can see outside, the way we live. It all goes back to those micronutrients and those little enzymes that are running our body, running our metabolism, creating energy for our brains to function properly, and keeping those reactive oxygen species low. So the research on daily essential nutrients is so extensive that a few years ago now, the American Psychiatric Association published for the first time, they have a lot of books on drugs in psychiatry, but for the first time, it's maybe 8 years ago now, they published a textbook on alternative treatments to the conventional psychopharmacal therapy drugs, pharmaceuticals. And this was the conclusion back then of the authors, and there's been more studies published since then. The authors concluded that broad-spectrum micronutrients may be comparable in efficacy to conventional medications and appear safer. So first line rational if the clinical presentation is not too acute. In other words, if the person's not on the edge, like going to harm themselves or others in a really intense way where you have to really drug them quickly and to save their life, then it'd be rational to use this first because they appear to be just as good and safer. Furthermore, and then they suggest how to think about it. So that this is a textbook intended for clinicians. And they're saying, just like you might talk about exercise, sleep hygiene, dietary measures, you're going to talk about lifestyle with your patients, right? In the initial phase of intervention. Then include broad spectrum micronutrients in that category. It's that fundamental. And consider that before you go to drugs, before conventional psychopharmacotherapy. And that's, for those of us who have lived through it and have experienced both sides, my brother came out of the psychiatric hospital on a bunch of drugs. he was functioning then. Wasn't very great. He was managed. He wasn't quite as violent. He was subdued by these an internal chemical straitjacket, which is what the drugs are, the antipsychotics are in that case. But he wasn't normal. He wasn't optimizing his opportunities in life. And but the difference on the micronutrients, because they are natural inputs to the way your body naturally works, and it can heal itself, the outcome is not just we're managing symptoms and there's some side effects. It's the outcome is just like it's like the problems go away, they're gone, and it's like normal, and and it's really exciting once you've experienced it. Just like these researchers, generation after generation of researchers, that they just saw the change in the participants of the studies, and then they wanted to study that too. And it's the same thing. I don't know if I could move to another job. Like this, the job satisfaction is so high. Seeing people who've struggled with their illness and dissatisfied with conventional treatments for years and years, finally do something that fixes their body on a fundamental level and just gets them out of that revolving door of always tweaking and never finding the optimal. It's so heartwarming. So it makes me go to work every day. So thanks for listening. And I think Florence has arranged a discount from Hardy Nutritionals. If anybody's interested in going there, you can go look at the studies page. You might get lost in that one. It's a lot of stuff there, but and like she said, we have customer service too, so you can call if you're not sure what would be best for your situation. Call and consult. I help train a staff of we call them wellness advisors that coach people on the use of our products, and you can just have a conversation about what might be good for you, what products and what doses and stuff, and use the kick sugar disc and kick the sugar, and instead with micronutrients, kick your mitochondria into high gear and actually make energy out of the sugar that you already have. Because I'm pretty sure you already have plenty, and your body doesn't need more sugar, even though it might crave it. It just needs to make better use of the energy that it's got, producing that ATP and reducing the oxidative stress.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dallin. I remember, and just so you know, it's a 50% discount, which might work out to roughly like free shipping or whatever. So at the checkout, there's a referral code. You type in kick sugar, you'll get 15% off. Is that in perpetuity or is that just on the first bottle?
I would have to check. I think this one is in perpetuity.
Yeah, I
So
think so.
once you've used it, it sets your account at Hardy Nutritionals to a permanent discount. All you
Right.
have to do to get that price again is log into your account and order again.
Okay.
You don't have to use the code again.
Beautiful. So great. So great. So one of the things, a couple years ago, I did an interview with you and I said, why don't other companies do this? Like, why did your company get so lucky to have universities, Harvard, Oxford, like New Zealand, be interested in working with your product? And your answer was so shocking to me. I've never forgot it. You said to me, because some of them don't want to know. Some of
Yeah.
them don't want to know. Some of them don't want to supply their product to a university to find out there's no statistically significant effect. And every time you freely give the product, we will donate the product. You do the research. Tell us how it goes. What happens? And all these studies just keep coming back, and they're like, "Oh my God, Dallin, the results that we're
Yeah.
getting are incredible." But I
Yeah,
just,
we're not scared of negative results because we don't usually get them. So
yeah,
we're pretty confident it'll be positive. If you just use the product the right way, it'll give your body what it needs, and your body will do what it does, and it just works.
yeah,
So
it just works. It's so wonderful. Will I quickly? No, I don't think so. HardyNutritionals.com. You guys can look it up. I'll put the link below this interview. If you go to there's a There's a tab on their menu that says research. So if you want to go deeper, they're all there. You just click links and you can see all the studies. And some of we didn't even get into the weeds on some of the things that you can see. Like
No.
for example, I'm just going to share two and then we'll wrap this up today. The study with the pregnant women, yes, it helped with postpartum, absolutely. But the effects on the babies and the children, like they make you want to cry. All of those children had faster reflexes, better moods. Like it was just beautiful. Like every month, in fact, if I was the president of my country, if I was the prime minister of my country, I would make these available to every pregnant mother. Period of story. It's a budget line in the government's budget. Every
Yeah.
mom gets these because every baby will benefit. There's also this study.
Can I comment on that one too?
Yeah,
They recruited some healthy controls. So like in the study, it was women with depression, and they gave them the nutrients, and it helped their depression, helped them sleep and stuff. And then they followed up with the babies, and the babies did wonderfully. But in comparing the babies to other babies, they recruited some healthy moms from the community who were taking regular over-the-counter prenatal vitamins. Okay. Most of these women were, and they did not have depression. The moms did not have depression. They were apparently healthy women, and they looked at the babies from those moms, healthy women taking regular prenatal vitamins. Looked at the babies from those moms, compared them to the babies from the women with depression, so already at a disadvantage, but they were taking daily essential nutrients. And the daily essential nutrients babies, or the babies who were exposed to daily essential nutrients in utero, outperformed on multiple measures, and markedly so, the babies from healthy moms taking their prenatal vitamins. So not only did it recover just to like recover your average community outcomes, it exceeded them in a setting, depressed women, where the expectation would have been much worse than community outcomes.
super. We're creating super babies with this product.
That's right.
Not only babies that aren't destined to grow up with depression, but brains and bodies that work even better.
That's
Even
right.
better. So I could go on. There was another study too that was so bizarre. One of the weirdest things they found is that the children that were taking the supplement were growing faster in a 3 month period. There was more thriving. They were taller. Like you can't make this stuff up. Anyways, enough
Yeah.
said for today. I really, really am excited about this product for you guys. And I have no skin in the game. I'm not a shareholder. I'm just someone who really believes that every now and then there's a product that we can get really excited about and we want to share with each other and pass it forward. So that's my motivation. Is there any final words you'd like to share today, Dallin?
Um, no, I don't think so. I think we've talked a lot, and I look forward to just helping more people. That's my motivation. That's what gets me to work every day. And
Mm.
this isn't like a silver bullet for everyone. Like sometimes, maybe I'll say something like sometimes people, let's say you have like a bowel disorder, and you can take these micronutrients in your mouth, but you aren't absorbing them very well, you know? So there are reasons that people don't respond well to the micronutrients, but they're generally treatable reasons. That's not genetics. That is something that you can fix your gut, and there are other products, whether from Hardy Nutritionals or elsewhere, that you can use for that. And then your body will start assimilating those nutrients and taking advantage of them. And so, um, but it's just knowing how to do it and getting the right things for you. And that's, back to what you mentioned at the top, that's why we have such extensive customer service. So, um, take advantage of it if
Right. If
you
it's not
if you need
working,
it as a customer. Yeah.
right, right. If you're feeling like you're not working, or if you're on SSRIs and you're on psychiatric medications, you need to call Hardee's and work with them very
Yeah. Do
closely.
not
And
just stop your medication.
do not stop your medications
Yeah.
and do
You
not do not take these while you're on these medications without oversight because you might
without
need to taper
consulting.
down.
Yeah.
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 So if you're on a psychiatric medication, on a pharmaceutical, and you're curious about these, call in first, get good advice, work with your doctor. This needs oversight.
Yeah.
Um, There's also studies in there on the impact of this on your microbiome. It can support the microbiome
Yep,
regenerating.
we didn't get there. There's a lot of more mechanisms than mitochondria that are known, but I think that one, I chose it because that one really shows how heavily dependent something that's so crucial as energy. I mean, energy is like it keeps the lights on in this room. And like energy is everything in the broader economy. Well, in your body's economy, energy is also everything, and it drives everything. And it just seeing how heavily the mitochondria depends, or mitochondria depend on vitamins, these essential vitamins and minerals, can be really eye-opening to just how important it is.
How important.
So, but yeah, the microbiome studies are fascinating. We'll have to talk about them another time.
Another time, another time. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I hope this changes your life. Have a good day. Bye. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you would like more interviews, more information, and more inspiration on how to break up with sugar, go to my YouTube channel, Kick Sugar Coach, or my website, kicksugarcoach.com. See you next week.